Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of the Property Development Club. Andrew and I have got a packed agenda for you today. A bunch of things to talk about, a lot in the news. July 1, lots of changes, so we'll have a chat about that. We'll talk about a bunch of TLAs, three-leg acronyms. We've got BTIs, LVRs and DTIs to talk about, so very exciting. We'll also talk about interest rates, changes to the Bright Line, and a little bit about Jason's project as well. So, Andrew, do you want to start us off with the news?
With the news, okay. Well, a ton of data is released today. You got One Roof, who has their monthly housing report, and they're reporting that the nationwide, that's New Zealand, average property value is down 0.9% to 969,000 in the last 3 months. Now, the reality is, what happens in the last 3 months doesn't really mean anything. It's winter, it's cold, it's wet, if you are where I am. And so then we revert to
it's not a time to go out looking for houses, is it? And when you get home...
It's a horrible time to look for houses. Actually, it's probably the best time to buy a house if you're buying an existing house, because then you can see where all the leaks are, and the water and the drainage, and you can...
And how cold and damp it feels.
Yeah, I mean, every place is brilliant in summer, right? You open all the doors and it's inside-outside flow. But in winter, you don't want to see the inside-outside flow of a drain. So, anyway, we digress. But, year on year, we're up a couple of percent across the country, across the major centres. And if we look at 5 years, we're up 25% or 24% in Auckland and 40-odd% in Waikato. So, property investment is a long-term game. If you look at 2 years, the last 2 years, it's down, in double digits in most locations. So property is also location-based. This data that comes out, this is the One Roof data, and it's different to they take an average of all the house prices. And then you've got the Real Estate Institute, who comes out with their housing price index, where they've tried to smooth some of the data around. And you've got CoreLogic does their thing, and Infometrics does their thing. And I think they all sort of rob from each other. But the general gist of it, John, is pretty simple. She's flat market, and we're bouncing down the bottom.
If anything, flat is a signal of strength. Almost. How negative the New Zealand economy looks at the moment and how high interest rates are, the fact that we're flat, I think, is a testament to demand. I mean, there's still a lot of people out there who want to buy property, right? Either they want to get on the ladder or they want to buy an investment property. The demand is out there. It's just nothing stacks up at the moment.
Well, the house sales, the volume, and I read a book many years ago. I think it was a guy called Robert Schiller, and he sort of predicted the GFC. And he said really the only forward-looking indicator is the house volume, the number of sales. And that's up. That's up in some areas 10% on this time last year. Listings are way up over that, so there's a lot of supply coming onto the market, and that's depressing prices. So, I think I said it last time, this is a market, it's got green shoots, but it's covered in mud. The Reserve Bank's mud of interest rates and all those things, which we can talk about later. Look, while I've got you, I thought I'd just look at a bit of news of what's happening in property development. So I've just taken my backyard up here in Auckland. And, there's a lot of apartment projects that Kaingaora are doing, which are finishing now. In the news today, they said they're going to cut their staff by a third. They've stopped using mammoth insulation, have gone back to pink bats to save some money. I'm not sure why they didn't do that in the first place. So all that Kaingaora stuff, it's coming to a grinding halt. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And then on the positive news, I drove by, had to drop some exams off the other day to Unitec. And I drove by Ockham's new development, Toi, T-O-I, and 65 apartments. It looks like he sold about 16. Prices range from $535 for a one-beddy, $700 to a two-beddy. Good prices, and he's got a tower crane there, so he's all go. Okay. So he's found his funding, and that's a positive for the market. Not many other apartment projects are starting. You've got Shane Brealey's BTR thing, which we can talk about later. Superannuation funded development in Mount Wellington, 297 apartments. He's out of the ground. So he's keeping the industry alive a little bit. And I guess, just recently I've just been judging some Chinese building awards and talking to some of the developers there, and they've had a hard time, but they're still eking a profit. In one case, they've still done a pretty reasonably good profit. They had a forecast return on investment of 30%, and they're going to end up with about 15%. Another guy had a forecast return of 20%, and he's just going to sneak over the line, I think. And they are getting some sales. So it's not, the property market never stops. And then there are some developers who are starting things. But, if you've got the money, boy, it's a great time to buy. I've been saying it for a year.
I bought a property this weekend.
Yeah, you did. You did.
How about that? In the depths of gloom and doom, I went out and bought a development site. What an idiot, eh?
You did, and it was such an easy transaction, I hear. How many units we're going to get on that site?
I don't know. Any more than about 10, and I'll be happy. So we'll see. We'll do a bit more. We'll work on it now. But
not the way a newbie should buy a development site. Everyone who's listening.
Well, no, we've got a pretty good margin for error in there. We'll put it that way. But the biggest risk buying at the moment, and one of the reasons I bought it, it's a great site. It's flat, level, rectangular. It should be easy to build on. All the infrastructure's in place, close to a town centre. Price is reasonable. The biggest risk at the moment is actually how long am I going to have to hold it before it's worthwhile developing it? Because this one I bought to develop and sell. So I'm really not going to move ahead and develop it until I think there's a chance of getting good sales and even getting some sales off the plans, as most of what I've developed over the years has been sold off the plans prior to construction starting. So that's my preferred process. So how long do I need to hold? And so the property cost me about $1 million. So at 8%, that's $80,000 a year that I'm paying just to hold it, plus rates and insurance and maintenance, and the house might rent for a little bit, but $500 a week maybe. But yeah, I still think it's definitely. I'm looking around. It's now is a I think is a good time to buy it. We've got to be somewhere near the bottom. But anyway, sorry. Back to your news.
Well, actually, it's going straight back to you, because the last bit of news, it's 1st of July, so it's DTI Day, debt to income ratio day.
More meddling, more regulation. So it looks like, again, we're following what some other countries have done. The UK's got it, Ireland's got it. We seem to like bringing in rules that the UK has, even if they've proven in Ireland and the UK that there's no definitive evidence as to whether or not DTIs actually help or hinder the market. But hey, let's bring them in anyway and see what unintended consequences they've got. So debt to income ratios is basically what it means is your borrowing will be limited by how much you earn. So put it simply, if you want to borrow $600,000, you need $100,000 income. For investors, it's a 7-to-1 ratio. So if you want to borrow $700,000, you need $100,000 income. So we'll say that again more simply. If you earn $100,000 and you're a home buyer, you can borrow $600. If you're an investor, you can borrow $700. Now, the idea behind these is they're supposed to act as a bit of a brake on the market. So you get into boom time and prices are rising, and banks tend to lend on the upside. They don't like lending so much on the downside. So the Reserve Bank is saying that they want to make sure that banks don't overdo it to the upside. So when you get into a slump, people haven't got too much debt, because if there were lots of mortgagee sales and people lost a lot of money, that could affect the stability of the economy. Well, the irony of it is that the only people who have put the economy at risk are the Reserve Bank themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at 2020, 2021, and they dropped interest rates, to almost zero, pumped huge amount of money into the economy. House prices popped 20 or 30%, depending on where you were living. And now they are saying they need to bring in these guardrails for the banks. The banks are actually doing a pretty good job. I mean, look at where we are now, right? We're in well, the worst slump in many years. I don't know what the stats. Do you know the stats on mortgagee sales, Andrew? I certainly haven't seen many locally.
No, there's not many. They're probably growing. But look, the banks are making billions of dollars of profits. They don't need any help. Why do they need to be handheld by the Reserve Bank? And this is just nanny state, and the unintended consequences are going to be massive. And there may be some exemptions for new builds and things like that, but a new build becomes an existing house as soon as it's sold. When you refinance your new build a year later, what happens then? I mean, there's all these issues. It's just, in my experience, and all the research I've done, and everything I've done and looked into, any time the government intervenes, it creates unintended consequences. Normally, rents go up, tenants have less supply, but it just affects the whole ecosystem in the market.
It's going to make it harder for first home buyers, because if you have lower incomes, then you're going to be limited on what you buy. And I mean, in some places like Queenstown, where you've got almost a $2 million average price, you're going to have to be earning 250 grand or something to be able to even to buy. So it's going to affect first home buyers. It's going to affect first time investors. It's going to be tough. It's going to be we're really going to be interesting to see how it affects small business startups, because if you want to start a business today in New Zealand, banks aren't going to lend on your business. They lend on your house, and then you take money out of your house and you use that for your business. Actually, it's gonna help developers like me. How about that, eh? Because I need help. Funny when they make these changes. They often make these changes that supposedly they should be supporting the population, and in fact they're actually. Yeah. Anyway, won't go into that, but they are not going to apply to new builds. So if you're a property investor and you're struggling to buy investment property, guess what? You can buy a townhouse off me.
But how's it going to affect developers buying land? You own a house, you've got a lot of equity, you want to buy a piece of land with a house on it to develop. No effect? Or
I'm guessing that if you're a developer, if you're a business, and this is, it's a business purchase, then I don't think the banks should be applying DTIs. I'll just finish DTIs with a report from Tail Risk Economics. They carried it out in 2016.
Okay. Who are they?
They studied all. They're a New Zealand think tank.
Okay.
And the report was done by a European Systemic Risk Board. Okay, so they carried out this assessment across all EU countries and looked at the effect that the GFC, global financial crisis, had on housing and house prices, right? And then they compared countries that had debt-to-income ratios versus countries that didn't have. So some of the countries that have them, I mentioned the UK, Ireland, Norway, and there are a couple of other countries in Europe that have them. And they found that DTI levels did not have any relevant effect either on the prediction of the crisis or on the depth of the crisis. So the DTIs did nothing. And I've seen similar information about the UK. UK house prices are still going up. Irish house prices, they bought in DTIs in Ireland in 2015, and house prices have been rising at 6% per annum. So,
Yeah, you can't beat the market, government. Just get out of it, is my opinion. And I've been, as a developer at Universal, building thousands and thousands of houses for sale and for people to rent out. I had the same opinion. It hits us one way or another. A classic example was, as soon as one of the rules came in, it stopped me buying a brand new house off the company I was working for. Simply couldn't do it. Didn't meet the rules, and the serviceability was no problem.
It's going to take away some of the bank's discretion too, right? So, you think a couple, dual income, no kids, but with a low salary, they don't qualify with the DTIs, right? So maybe the house is, instead of being 600,000, they're earning 100 instead of 600. It's 650. Prior to 1 July, the bank might be able to assess those people and go, hey, look, here's a really hard-working couple. Both of them have got jobs, and they might, they might be not be high-paid jobs. They might be drivers or cleaners or assistant teachers or whatever it might be, and the bank could say, hey, these people are genuine. They've got, they haven't got high-paying jobs, but they're reliable jobs. They're going to them on time. They've got a good saving history, etc., etc. We'll give them a go. And so the banks had a little bit of discretion. Now that's being removed, right? Because the Reserve Bank knows better.
So what happens is we become a nation of more and more renters, right? We're tenants. And, you got quite fired up at the end of last week about build to rent.
One of the TLAs. Can we talk about one of the?
Do you want to go into BTR?
Three-letter acronyms. Build to rent. Build to rent. Do you want to talk about? Do you know the definition of build to rent, Andrew? Can you tell
No, I don't know the definition of build to rent because I worked for a company that was established in 1959 until recently, and they built 21,000 homes. And from my calculation, about 4,000 or 5,000 of those homes went to people as investment properties so they can give a tenant an opportunity to rent a home. And we were doing build to rent since 1959. Now, it wasn't flash apartment buildings with swimming pools and media rooms and all those things for the wealthy. It was just, so I don't understand really why all where this phenomena has come from.
Well, the reason I got fired up was I was reading a post that someone had put up on LinkedIn, and they're a consultant, and they were talking about how they were planning on acquiring build-to-rent property and offering it long-term to tenants. So this was a plan to get into build-to-rent, and they got a huge amount of positive feedback, people commenting that's fantastic and what a great job you're doing and it's so important and well done. And I thought, what have I been doing since 1997? I've been building build to rent, or buying build to rent. That first house I bought in 1997 in Cambridge, which I still own today, has been available for rent for that entire time, right? And all of the other property that I have bought or built and offer long term is build to rent. But because I don't have 20 units in one complex, I don't qualify. So the thing that bugs me is that they're adapting the rules to make it more attractive for large corporations to get into the rental market at the same time as they're actively making it less attractive for New Zealand individuals to invest in the rental market. Okay, and I don't understand why that is. Why should build to rent, if you're a foreign company, you're going to be able to come in and build blocks of rental housing. You're going to be able to claim the GST back, which means you're going to have a higher yield than a mum and dad New Zealander would have, because you can claim the GST back and rent it out. You're going to be able to claim depreciation, which is a huge tax benefit. And what are they doing for New Zealanders who want to, own one or two rental properties? They're just making it more and more difficult all the time. So I just there seems to be, it's almost like there's this underlying plan to move us towards a nation of renters. Everything that I see that's going on, the debt to income ratio is now coming in from the 1st of July, making it harder for people to get on the market. The build to rent, making it more attractive for foreign companies to come in. It's just one thing after another, and it just makes me feel very uncomfortable. And when I see people applauding build to rent, yes, we need all kinds of rental housing, okay? And we need standalone homes and townhouses and apartments, and there will be a market for build to rent. But also one thing on build to rent, they're going to be for people with a price point, right? They're not coming in to house the people who are currently in motels. They're not assisting with social housing. They're not even assisting with the bottom of the ladder. The people who are cleaners and work at BP and at KFC and so on and need affordable accommodation. They're not going to be providing that.
Look, I don't care where the money comes from. I don't care if it's foreign or local. I care a little bit, not too much. I love people who produce housing for sale and for rental housing, the more development, the better. I just ask for an equal playing field. Just make it even for everybody, not distort it all. Now, as far as your prices, I mean, I'm looking at a build-to-rent complex that's recently released in Auckland, 2 beddies starting at $775 a week. I own a house I own a unit down the road. I'm renting it for $500 a week. It's 2 bedrooms. Mine has a car park.
I dropped my pen when you said 775 for a week for 2 bedrooms. Sorry.
John, down the road in Sylvia Park, they've just released a build-to-rent project. Looks fantastic, all the rest of it. 2-bedroom rents start at $775 per week without a car park.
Without a car park.
That's Ponsonby prices, so good luck to them, and they're going to set the market if they achieve those prices. They've got a lot of units to rent. But to give you some context, I own a 2-bedroom brick and tile unit with a little lawn and a car park not far from there, and I'm renting it for $500 a week. So build to rent is certainly not affordable housing. I know Simplicity are going to have rents much lower than that, but let's just have a level playing field. Just a level playing field. Mum and dad New Zealanders who are investing in rental properties, such as the stuff that you build and many others build across the country, should be on the same level as any foreign corporation or local corporation. And to say that big corporations are better at managing tenants, I really take offence at that. I really take offence. The number of times where there's been a maintenance request and there's been no one around, where I've gone and had a look at myself because it's the middle of a public holiday or something, getting an emergency plumber onto something, or it's I don't like the targeted approach that's anti-mum and dad landlord. And I tell you what, I lived in a build-to-rent complex in Phoenix, Arizona, and my wife, I'll blame her, it's probably me, one of us messed up our rental payment. That afternoon I had a pink sticker on the door saying you have 3 days to leave. Wow. That was a complex run by a corporate organisation. They've only got one thing in their heart. They don't care if you're a nurse, you can't pay your rent, etc., etc., etc. So look, just be aware, that's what I'm saying.
You see it, I've seen so many times the number of under-rented properties that we've looked at, and you ask, why are these rents so low? And the agent will tell you, well, the landlord said that the tenants have been in here for a few years and they're always really friendly and they're nice and they look after the house, so they don't put up the rent. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I mean, we have a property on our block, a 3-bedroom home, which is massively under rented, but it's just really nice lady, and they look after the property, and and that's just not going to happen in a corporate environment, as you've said, Andrew. It's just not.
Okay, enough about that. We're just be fair, everyone. Be fair, government. Come on. Look,
John, there are positives with the DTIs, right? Remember the LVRs are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So the loan to value ratio is the third of our TLAs today. So banks are going to be able to lend a little bit more. So so investors, it's going from 60 to 70%, I believe.
Right.
And for home owners, 15% are going to be able to borrow more than 80%. So the actual stats are 15% of borrowers can borrow more than 80% for owner-occupied lending, and 5% of people can borrow more than 65% for investor lending. So it's loosened up slightly.
Yeah, it's just another rule that doesn't really need to be there. Now, John, I've just looking at the paper today. Would you buy an investment property just because McDonald's is starting up down the road?
No.
That's the news in the paper, yeah. There's a recommendation to follow McDonald's. They're trying to open a McDonald's up the road here in Iraqi. I've been trying to open it for 20 years. So when you're developing sites, do you look at what some of these restaurants or supermarkets are doing?
Yeah, I think it can make a difference, and from what the big takeaway joints like McDonald's and the big supermarket chains, they do seem to have a very good handle on areas that are going to grow. I mean, they tend to be the first in, don't they? You know, you see a McDonald's and a BP, and then later you see industrial buildings and then housing. So they obviously have very good planning departments and are very close with councils and so on, and know where infrastructure needs to go. So it's potentially a sign of a growing area in a place like Aoraki. I mean, should we talk about the economy for a bit? Obviously, we've talked a little bit about sales. Inflation is coming down. Some of the economists are predicting it to drop. I think that was KiwiBank talking about inflation dropping to 3% by the end of the year. So that's coming off a peak of 7.3%. So inflation is going the right way. I think we're sitting around 4 now, so a little bit further to fall. Obviously, the economy is feeling the strain of that. Most people are having a tough time. It's almost as though it almost feels like a lot of people and businesses are almost waiting. We're just sitting and waiting for interest rates to drop, which is really not a good way to increase your productivity or for anyone to make money. And it's another symptom of sort of government control where they dictate and we just wait to be told what to do. But
I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, some of my friends who own small businesses in different industries, I mean, they're really trying to hone their systems and get improvements, and unfortunately they have to, they might have some excess staff and all those sorts of things. So, they've been doing that, but they've also been doing it for about 2 years now.
Right.
So now it's a cash flow survival story until interest rates come down, it appears.
That's a good point, actually, as opposed to using the word waiting for some people. It's actually it's a survival game, isn't it? That's all they're doing, is trying to pay the bills and move on. On a positive note, what that means is that interest rates should come down.
Yeah,
so
bring it down. Let's go.
A number of economists have now brought forward their estimates to November for the first cut. So that could be a good thing. So again, we're looking at sort of 6.5%. Mortgage rates for 2025 is some of the predictions I've seen. 6.5% for 25, 5.5% for 26, and 5% for 27. But hey, I mean they're estimates, but I mean we're certainly more likely to lower than raise. I mean the chance of a raise I think is very, very slim.
It's got to be lower than 6.5 next year. It has to be.
You would think so. What it's kind of annoying though when the Reserve Bank say one of the reasons that they're holding interest rates up is because of surging inflation and rates, council rates increases.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do about that? Nothing. On the rental yield front, rental yields have climbed a little bit from a low of 2.6% in 2022. We're up at about sort of 3.2. So depending on where you are in the country, 3.5. So yeah, still pretty low. But yeah, that's just part of it.
Well, the USA PMI came out and they're pretty high. We're low, but we're just above Switzerland and just below Australia. So there are a few countries struggling there. But something exciting that's on the horizon, especially for Jason, the new project that we're profiling. Yes. How is Jason's project going?
It's been a pretty quiet week. So just to recap, Jason is an insurance broker in Hamilton. He's got his home overlooking the river, lovely home, so he wants to stay there, but he's got a big block of land, so he's going to put 9 townhouses on the site and keep them long term as his retirement plan, really, for cash flow. And we're helping him do that. So he had an original set of plans when he first spoke to us about it. Those plans, the houses are too big. So we've been able to help him with a look at a potentially redesign. Just not a huge redesign, but enough that should save him about $500,000 across the 9 townhouses. So a relatively small change, but a very big effect.
How many floor plans, John, do you reckon you've looked at over the last 20 years? Different floor plans.
countless, thousands probably, thousands of plans.
And there's always a tweak, right? And there's always a tweak
Yeah, yeah.
for
But, I mean,
efficiency and improvement.
it's a game of Tetris, really. I mean, you just keep turning those little blocks, and a bathroom, or where do you put the toilet versus the vanity, and do you have an opening door or a cavity slider, or just everything makes a difference, and everything makes a difference to everything else. So you make this decision, and this now works, but then something else doesn't work. So it's you really need to spend time working on the plans.
And don't leave it to your architect or your real estate agent. You need both in your ear, or your designer, and you yourself need to really understand floor plans if you're going to develop.
Well, I think you need to look at them with your practical hat on, right? Really, imagine if I was in the bedroom, and where would the bed be? Okay, and then I'd walk past the bed and open the door. Oh, and actually, there's not really going to be a lot of room to open the door. Just really have a think about it. Go into the bathroom and think about, is there a window? Okay, well, if there's a window there, I can't put a mirror on the wall there because there's a window. So maybe the vanity could be somewhere else. It needs to be reconfigured. So there are a lot of different things to think about, and they all make a difference to the livability of the property once it's done. So Jason's development, he is basically in a little bit of a holding pattern at the moment. He's instructed the surveyor to carry out a topographical survey on the property, so that'll pick up all the contours. It'll mark where all the services are, where existing buildings are, that type of thing. And then next step we'll do with the new architect, we'll just confirm the layout of where the buildings are going to go with those new sizings, and then we'll get some geotech reports done to actually take a look at the soils.
Okay, John. So on a positive note, what wins have you had?
Wins this week. July 1 was important for another reason. Hamilton City Council's development contributions are increasing, almost doubling actually from 1 July. So townhouses, the development contribution per townhouse is increasing from about 18 to about 33,000, so massive increase, right? So I've got a couple of sites that I've just been, I bought a couple of years ago. I don't like to call them land banks because I'm not just buying them to sit on. I've been having to buy land further and further out because it's taking so long to get consents.
Right.
And we're offering hitting hurdles.
Is that red tape? More red tape?
Yeah, red tape and changes in rules, and I've talked about it before with heritage zoning, areas of natural significance, potential flooding, lack of infrastructure. There's all kinds of things that cause snags now and mean that it takes longer to get a site ready to develop. So I've been buying further in advance, which has other risks, right? Like this one, from 1 July, development contributions go up. So across two sites, one a 17-unit site and another a 4-unit site, they're both, so that's 21 units, and the increase was going to be over $400,000 in fees,
wow,
which I hadn't budgeted with. And there's just not that much margin available in those two developments. The 17-unit I intend to develop and sell. The 4-unit site's a long-term hold. I bought that property in 2010, so I've had it for nearly 14 years now.
An old house.
But yeah, I'll remove it and put four new townhouses on. It's very close to town. You walk to Wintec, walk to CBD. That's a long-term hold. But yeah, so it was a complicated process, right? It got down to the wire. We had to submit prior to 1 July to ensure that those new fees didn't apply. So I had to engage a few people that I preferred not to help get that process across the line. But we got there, and our consents are in and processing, and so it was a win.
So that's 400 grand saved Jason last week, 400 grand on your developments this week. We should keep a running tally, offset by the reserve bank costs that we have to incorporate.
Yeah, Yeah, it's funny actually. Development sometimes is. It reminds me of a saying. I think it was Tony Alexander who coined the phrase. Must have been in the last cycle when he said grumpy growth.
Right.
What he called the economy. Because it felt like at that time that we weren't getting anywhere and there were a lot of troubles and that everything was hard and so on. But if you looked at a chart, the economy was actually growing, and people were making money, but it didn't feel like it, and that's why he called it grumpy growth. It was a perfect term for the market at that time. But I often think about it with development, because often I need to look back and look at the wins and go, oh, okay, yeah, we got that. Was it week before last got the consent for those 10 units that which I thought was going to be more difficult. We were able to save Jason that money on the developments. We were able to save money on these fees. So there are positives and you're doing well, but it doesn't sometimes it doesn't feel like it, right? Because it's not always fun. You got to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough for a lot of people out there at the moment as well. If you look at the jobs, jobs are down, and the construction sector is expected to be hit pretty hard, and it already has been hit pretty hard. So, you celebrate
we need government
anyone.
to actually be spending now instead of tightening. Especially construction jobs. You look at, when these building companies go under, where do the tradies go? They all shoot off to Aussie. Why aren't we actually borrowing and spending now?
Funnily enough, I was talking to a Melbourne developer in the weekend, and he was moaning about all the rules that are coming in Victoria. They've got a Labour-style government. And I said, mate, all us Kiwis are going to Australia, so where are all you Victorians going? And unfortunately, well, I don't know. It's the same story. They're going to Queensland. So everyone's going to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, man, the Gold Coast has grown. That whole area, all up the Sunshine Coast, it's massive growth. Nice place, though. Nice place. All right, Andrew. So, how about we wrap up with a book review?
Yeah, I love a good book review. What do you got?
All right. Well, I've got an oldie but a goodie. I think a lot of people will have read it. If they haven't, then just buy the book and read it. It'll take you a couple hours. It's well worth the time. I read it first time in 1997, just after I bought my first property in Cambridge, and it's Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So if you haven't read it, pretty simple, based on two figures. His biological dad, who was highly educated and always struggled with money, and his best friend's dad, who was a high school dropout, and he did very well with money. He was a multi-millionaire. So it's really it's really focused on financial literacy, and having the right mindset if you want to build wealth, and really understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. And it might sound simple, but it's easy to overlook. I mean, an asset is something that puts money in your pocket, right? And a liability does the opposite. So that's why Robert Kiyosaki's always argued that your home is not actually an asset, because all your home does for you is it just provides a bunch of bills, right? You've got to pay your rates and your maintenance and your interest costs and all the rest of it, and there's nothing coming in. Whereas a property that you buy as an investment, and especially if you can buy well and it'll pay for itself, or after a couple of years, then that's an asset. So that's one of the things that he talks about. Sounds simple, but it's really worthwhile. And the idea behind it, the importance really is that if you can build up assets that pay you, okay, and whether it's rental property or it's stocks and shares, or it's your business, is that's your way out of the rat race, right? So a lot of people are caught in the rat race because their income increases, and then you sort of staying, oh well, next year I'm going to get a raise, and I'm going to another raise, and then maybe you get to a point where, I don't know, you're earning really well and you're making $150,000 a year, and it's like, wow, I'm on a great salary, so you know, I can't stop, or I can't try something new. But in reality, no matter how much you earn on a salary, it goes out again, right? I mean, your living costs just rise to your salary level. So, you know, you drive a more expensive car, and you live in a more expensive house, and then your kids go to private school, and blah 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 blah. You're basically back at zero. Whereas if you can build up a stable of assets that pay you, they've got regular cash flow, they're increasing in value, so they're increasing with capital gain, then you can get ahead. And then you get into this virtuous cycle, right, where you get up in the morning and you've already made money, you know, and your assets are building in value, and the cash flow is increasing, and you know, then you do your own thing. You know, that's how you create financial freedom. So
yeah, couldn't agree more. And even if you are earning a good salary and are frugal with your cars and your houses, you're still somewhat bound, and you've got to really look. The idea, isn't it? Set up a business and then own assets that create cash flow. That's the.
Well, you can't save yourself rich, right? It's as simple as that. You can't save yourself rich. You know, like, well, you could. So let's say you earned $100,000 a year, and you still got to pay your taxes, and you still got to live and whatever. And I don't know. Let's say you can save $20,000 a year, right? Well, that's going to add up over time. But if you want to save yourself rich, I mean, how long does it take you to get to $1 million? You're going to be 80 or 90 years old. You know, like, you've also got to be young and fit and healthy enough to actually use the money. What's the point of saving all your life, and then you get to a point where it's like, oh, you want to travel and whatever, but actually now you don't really want to travel. You prefer your own bed, you know? You prefer to have dinner at 4:30 and watch a TV show, and and that's, like, I'm not knocking anybody, that's just the normal cycle of life. I mean, there's just going to be a point where there's a whole bunch of stuff that you just can't be bothered with anymore, you know? So time comes into this as well. You know, you've got to, the earlier you get into it, the better. Really.
Become a nice conservative property developer who sells and holds.
Time's definitely on your side. And there's no better time to start than now, that's for sure.
Well, that's a good chat today, John.
Yeah, it was good. Enjoyed that.
The
listeners did as well. We had added some value. Hopefully.
Do you think we should ask listeners for their ideas and questions and what they want us to tackle, perhaps?
That sounds like a good idea. So yeah, if you've got anything you'd like to know more about, anything to do with property development, property investment, anything specifically in the property space, that said, if there's anything about economy or lending or whatever, just fire us your ideas, and if we don't know the answer, we'll do some research. Look, I'm always wanting to learn, and that's another tip for you guys. Read books, get mentors, ask questions. Time, again, I talked about, you don't want to save until you're 90. You want to make money so you can enjoy it. Then speed up time. You can speed up time through books, through seminars, through courses, mentors. Just you can learn lessons from other people. People say you should you learn a lot from mistakes, but you don't have to be yours. Learn from others. So please ask us questions.
If you're not earning, you should be learning.
The more you earn, the more you learn. All right. No, it's the other way around. Damn it, it's pulled that one. The more you learn, the more you earn. Enough rubbish from us. All right, cool. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew.